Now that you've seen The Ultimate Guide, Human Body, Part 1, talk about this. Gustave Eiffel based the structure of the Eiffel Tower on human bone structure. What are the similarities and differences between the two? How did the femur bone inspire the design of the Eiffel Tower? Talk about other inventions and structures that were modeled on the human body. Now try this. Using photos or models, compare the human skeleton with the skeleton of a chicken, a dog, or even a dinosaur. Research the different types of bones each animal has. Compare and contrast the differences in structure and function. Log on to discoveryschool.com/teachers for curriculum materials and resources to support The Ultimate Guide, Human Body. To learn more, Assignment Discovery suggests The Human Being by David Glover. Consider this before viewing The Ultimate Guide, Human Body, Part 2. There are over 100 billion cells in your brain working to keep you alive and healthy. What are some of the many functions your brain performs every day? As you watch the program, note how the brain works with other organs and body parts to carry out the brain's many jobs. Assignment Discovery now presents The Ultimate Guide, Human Body, Part 2.
Perhaps the most sophisticated instrument in nature is something we take for granted: the human hand. We only consider it when it needs maintenance, but the hand is a remarkable piece of mechanical engineering. It contains more moving parts, controlled by more muscles than any other structure in the body. This is why the hand can perform such an enormous variety of movements. It is capable of both brute force and incredible finesse. But the hand has not always been so versatile. At the University of Arizona, physical anthropologist Dr. Mary Marski is investigating the evolution of the hand. She believes that it was molded by millions of years of practice. 3.5 million years ago, humans learned to stand upright, freeing up their front paws to learn new skills. This is Lucy, our oldest known upright ancestor. The area in Ethiopia where she was discovered was strewn with stones that she may have used as crude tools. All that is now left of Lucy are a few fossilized bones. So in order to find out whether Lucy's hands were equipped to make tools, Dr. Marski had to do some detective work.
If you could just go through the motions, see if I have it all in the picture.
As an archaeologist goes through the motions required to make a simple prehistoric cutting tool, electrodes fixed to his hand measure which muscles are active. This allows Dr. Marski to pinpoint which muscles Lucy would have required to make such tools.
Well, Lucy would have had muscles very similar to ours, probably the same full complement of muscles that we have. And the muscles would have had to have enough leverage so that she could hold on to objects tightly, because in much of tool making, you have to be able to hold the tool with one hand, hit it with another, and prevent them from flipping out of the hand. And the working surface has to be exposed, otherwise you smash your fingers. Apes can hold things very tightly and grasp things very tightly with their fingers, but it covers up the working surface. And so the muscles had to be built a little bit differently.
By taking close-up photographs of Lucy's finger bones, Dr. Marski is able to reconstruct a three-dimensional image of the joint surfaces. From the shape and curvature that was revealed, she is able to judge the amount of movement Lucy's fingers may have had.
Well, Lucy doesn't seem to have had so much of a range of movement for her little finger, especially in the palm of the hand coming toward the thumb. All right, we're going to do clubbing. And this might have had an effect on her ability to get a good grasp of cylindrical objects like bones that she might have used for pounding or clubbing. On the other hand, she had some features which she shared exclusively with modern humans. And these features provide a little give at the base of the index finger, allowing it to be pulled over toward the thumb, so that we think that she would have had the ability for a good, well-controlled three-jaw chuck grip of something like stones that she could have thrown.
Throwing objects with speed and precision may have been the one thing that gave early humans the edge over other animals. This ability meant that any predator would have thought twice about attacking Lucy or her kind. This gave humans the freedom to perfect their manual skills and allowed the hand to evolve. Engineers at NASA have achieved in 5 years what took nature millions of years to accomplish. They have built a robotic hand that can do almost everything the human hand can do. The NASA hand will one day be part of a robotic astronaut that will perform sophisticated maintenance tasks outside spacecraft. It takes a bank of computers merely to control the mechanical components of the hand. But it needs an even more sophisticated piece of hardware to guide it by remote control: a human brain. There are an infinite number of possible situations that the hand needs to cope with. This enormous task leaves even the most powerful computers stranded. We actually spend most of our early childhood teaching our brains how to control our hands. Just to open a tin can, the brain has to send millions of nerve signals to the hands every second, while it simultaneously coordinates a multitude of other bodily functions. The brain can do this because it processes information in a unique way. It splits the workload among its 100 billion cells, each communicating with 10,000 other cells via a network of electrical connections. To get an idea of the scale of this system, imagine making a phone call. Now imagine making a phone call to everyone you know. Now imagine every citizen in a city as big as New York calling every single name listed in the telephone directory. What if the same thing was happening in every single city in the world? How long would it take? How many connections would that amount to? It's getting close to the number of connections the brain can activate per second. And it makes them quietly. But the brain is not confined to the 85 cubic inches of space inside the skull. The brain is able to reach out and experience the world through the senses. The sense of touch calls on 5 million powerful sensors sprouting from the skin. Each hair has a nerve at its root, so sensitive it is sparked by the slightest pressure. A mote of dust is all it takes. The sense of hearing relies on specially shaped pieces of cartilage attached to the sides of the head. The ridges and hollows of the ear vibrate at different frequencies according to the location of the sound source. This helps us determine where a sound comes from. The surface of the tongue is dotted with 9,000 chemical detectors. These taste buds require just a few molecules of a substance to detect whether it's bitter, salty, sour, or sweet. The radar net of the senses even extends far beyond the body itself. We can distinguish up to 10,000 different smells, which language is not equipped to describe. How do you describe the smell of a sunny afternoon or a newborn baby? We are literally bathed in smells, as odor molecules are floating around us all the time. Every breath draws millions of these molecules up into the nostril. The stream of molecules winds its way right up to a small patch at the top of the nose. This area is packed with millions of nerve cells that can register smells. The odor molecules dissolve in the sticky mucus surrounding the tips of these cells. Each nerve ending is studded with tiny receptors that will react to only one specific kind of molecule. Once the odor molecules lock into the correct receptor, they trigger electrical impulses. These signals feed straight into the brain area that controls emotion and memory. That explains why smells are so good at bringing back memories and influencing our mood. The conscious part of the brain eventually translates all the electric signals from the nose into what we perceive as a smell. So ultimately, we smell with our brains. The brain plays an equally important role in sight. More space in the brain is devoted to vision than to all the other senses put together. A picture hitting the retina triggers a wave of electrical activity which travels through the optic nerve to the brain. Within fractions of a second, the brain neatly divides this electric storm into separate chunks of information. For color, edge, form, movement, or depth. Eventually, the brain rebuilds the separate elements into a picture we can understand. Unless you are blind. Neurobiologist John Cronley Dillon is trying to do something that sounds like a miracle: make blind people see. His inspiration came from an unlikely source.
It was found quite a long time ago that if you'd cut an optic nerve of a goldfish and you waited a few months, it would regrow. The million or so nerve fibers that had been severed would home back into the brain and connect up within the brain. And the question is, why can the goldfish do it and we can't do it? There are a lot of laboratories all over the world that are looking at this problem. And in fact, it looks as if we may be able to stimulate the growth, and it's very encouraging, but it's still a long way off.
Professor Cronley Dillon's aim is to come up with an alternative system. He believes that the part of the brain that is normally used for vision can be retrained to adapt to extra auditory input.
The boundaries between the different senses may not be as sharply demarcated as we've always thought would be the case. There are certain visual areas of the brain that receive input from the auditory system.
At the University of Manchester, Cronley Dillon is attempting to teach his blind subjects to recognize pictures by their sound. Like this fish, or this horse. He gives horizontal lines one sound, the pitch depending on its height. Verticals another, diagonals another. Then if the picture is simplified into a line drawing, it has a characteristic sound. The picture can be split into simple sections or played as a whole.
Right, well, I've got a number of images of scenes taken in this area, but what I'm going to do is to let you listen to the whole sound signature for the whole scene. Right, you've heard what I've played, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you think it is?
I think the major part of the picture is a big building, because you can hear all those verticals and they're the signatures for many windows.
That's right.
The other thing, on the left and the right of it must be in the foreground, because they seem even bigger in some senses. So I guess the tree must be on the right, must be in the front of the picture. And on the left-hand side, could it possibly be the outline of another building, perhaps?
Yes, that's right.
Professor Cronley Dillon's ultimate aim is that the subject would carry a camera attached to a computer, which would simplify scenes and provide the relevant musical signature, acting as an aid like the guide dog or the cane.
It's a way of touching the world with you. This is what our eyes do. They're touching the world for you at a distance. Now, it's true that touch does that, but with a cane, you're limited to within arm's length. We see it as providing information which is not at the present available to a blind person.
The brain is able to adapt and learn new skills because, unlike the hardware inside a computer, the brain is not set in stone. It is of an almost fluid nature. Think of the brain as a pond, and any kind of experience as a pebble hitting the water. Waves of electrical activities spread out through the brain like ripples on the pond. Different ripples merge and form new patterns. The surface of the pond changes all the time. Just like the brain, which is constantly rewiring itself. Every thought, every emotion can create a new connection or strengthen an existing one. This is how we learn. Behind all of this activity is an army of microscopic machines, responsible not only for the brain's actions, but the process within the body. Humans are made up of about 70 million cells. Boyce Rendsburger, science writer turned biologist, has become obsessed with investigating the wonders of the cell.
The entire human body is made out of cells or the things that cells have made, such as bone. Skin is made of cells, your heart is made of cells, the muscles that operate the body so that you can move, these things are all made of cells, including the brain itself, which sends electrical signals around from one cell to the other so that we can think. All these different kinds of cells work fundamentally the same way. When you look inside the cell, you see the same kinds of structures.
Inside a single cell, there are hundreds of microscopic power stations, protein factories, recycling plants, and transport highways. The nucleus is the control center of the cell. It contains DNA, the blueprint of life that tells a cell how to assemble its infrastructure. The outer wall of the cell allows it to take in the raw materials it needs to stay alive. Cells trap these materials from the outside and package them into tiny cargo bubbles called vesicles. The bubble hitches a ride on a motor no bigger than a molecule, which latches on to one of the miniature monorail tracks that form the cell's transport network. Usually, the bubbles reach their destinations within seconds. But in the biggest cells, which stretch from the spine to the toe, the journey can take 4 days. Each bubble carries a code, a chemical address label that guides it to a particular location. When it reaches its target, perhaps a lysosome, one of the cell's many recycling plants, it hops off the track and empties its cargo. The job of the recycling plant is to break down the delivered raw materials into smaller building blocks, which the cell uses to grow.
The instructions that are in the cells, starting in embryonic development, tell each cell how to change to take on a new function. Also, the cells monitor the activities going on. If there's a wound, the cells can sense that, and they will send out the message to other cells to come and repair the damage. So all of this keeps the whole body on a kind of an even keel.
It seems that cells really are the fundamental building blocks of life. If so, what more can scientists learn about life by studying cells? Could it be that our incredible bodies are no more than the result of physics and chemistry? Even if one day our very thoughts could be explained in terms of cells and molecules, there is something that lies beyond the realm of science. Quite simply, how we live our lives. Our experiences and memories really make us who we are. Unique inhabitants of nature's most complex machine, the human body.
Keep watching. Discussion questions and activity and resources for the ultimate guide, Human Body, are up next on Assignment Discovery. Now that you've seen The Ultimate Guide, Human Body, Part 2, talk about this. The scientist in the program teaches blind people to see with their ears using music and computers. Think of ways that this practice could be applied to other senses if they cease to function. Which of your senses do you value the most? Now try this. Conduct a smell memory test with a blindfolded classmate. Put foods, flowers, and other common odorous items in individual cups. Have your partner describe the first memory that each smell evokes. Log on to discoveryschool.com/teachers for curriculum materials and resources to support The Ultimate Guide, Human Body, Part 2. To learn more, Assignment Discovery suggests The Human Body Explained, edited by Philip Whitfield.